You're on your couch setup. I thought
I
you had like a
am.
computer setup.
So we're doing 2019 is the year of us just doing things that we haven't been doing because they would be inconvenient. And one of those things is painting the inside of our house. This house is a brick rancher in like a little suburb of a little East Coast city, and we're only the second family to own it. And when they moved out, they just sort of painted everything this kind of off yellow color,
How old is the
including
house?
what?
How old is the house?
It was built in the middle of the 60s.
Oh, and you're only the second owner.
Yeah. So they were pretty sure that part of them, I mean, it was actually an estate. So the original owners died and we bought it from like their grandchildren.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's
Um,
like East Coast old homes. Like old California homes are like 70s or 80s, right? They're
yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah. Um, so the entire inside of the house was kind of quickly painted this really disturbing off beige, whitish, yellowish color, including the light switches and the outlets and the ceilings and everything. And we've repainted the smaller rooms, but the main living area is still sort of this off color. And it's interesting because it's sort of quietly anxious because it just everything looks just like sort of slightly dirty and old.
It's like a weird vibe in the house.
Yeah, yeah, and but it's so hard to move everything and cover everything and do all the prep work, and painting ceilings is hard. I'm very short. So we finally, after living here for almost 3 years, have decided to pay somebody to come and paint most of our house, which means we've had this mass shuffling of, okay, we're going to move things from this closet into that closet, and then we can move all the stuff that was in the living room into that closet, and then we can move all the stuff that was in the kitchen into this box in the basement. And it's just this massive packing problem, which I'm really into figuring out efficient solutions for those. And my husband's just like, I'm going to walk back and forth and carry this item over here, and then I'll go back for the next one. And I'm like, I appreciate your help, but I wanted to strategize for like a week before we started moving
It's like those
anything.
really old Nintendo games, right? I don't remember which, like the block games, right? I mean, they
Yeah.
were the 2D block games where you push the blocks.
Yeah. Or the ones where you're trying to draw a picture and you have to slide all of the blocks
Oh,
around.
yes, yes, that's right.
Um,
Isomorphic problems, yeah.
yeah. Uh so anyways, right now our house is like half of the house is incredibly cluttered and just filled with junk, and the other half is like empty as though this is like a dorm room and we just moved in. So yeah, so I'm out on the sofa. I can move around a little bit. You can see we've got like it's like super creepy empty.
It's one story, right?
Yeah, it's one
Yeah.
story with a full basement. So we have a lot of room to
Oh,
hide
nice.
stuff, but the main living area is about 1,200 square feet.
That's pretty good. Yeah, the East Coast, like, we
But
don't have base.
half of 1,200 square feet is not enough.
Oh, well, because oh, right, you're
Because
doing half
right,
right now.
so yeah,
Yeah.
so we can't. 1,200 square feet is a great amount of space. Putting 1,200 square feet of stuff in only 600 square feet is like not really fun.
So have you thought about getting rid of stuff as an excuse because you're doing the shuffling?
Well, so this is interesting, and this is part of my wanting to strategize. But the first thing we did in 2019 was I finally refinished some of our bedroom furniture, and this is bedroom furniture that was in my grandmother's house and then became my father's bedroom furniture and then became my parents' bedroom furniture and then became my bedroom furniture and is now our bedroom furniture. So this furniture is from the 40s, I believe. And it's not fancy. No one would pay money for it as an antique, but it is solid wood and it's still fine. And I refinished the furniture, which meant I had to pull out all of the dresser drawers. And I just happened to have that Marie Kondo show on Netflix. And my husband's sitting there looking at this dresser that I had just cleaned and redone, and all of his stuff is on the floor. And
Oh no.
he goes, I'm gonna do it. And he did it. He like went through and got rid of stuff, and he folded everything up nice and neatly. And he's absolutely down for when we put everything back, going through and getting rid of things and figuring out a better way to organize stuff. But he wasn't down with doing that like as we were moving things out of the way. He was just like, no, 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 like we just got to get everything out of the way now. So I think that when we're putting things away after the rooms have been painted, he'll be a lot more selective about what we keep and what we put back and where we put it. But
Yeah, it's almost like you're moving, right? Because like moving is a good excuse to clean out. It's kind of like a move in a way.
yeah, it absolutely is. And I have always been really aware of how those external factors are always the best time to make changes. Like, I almost always start running again when I moved because it's a great way to get to know your neighborhood. And then once I got bored of the neighborhood, I would stop. And so this is actually the longest I've gone without, running recreationally, is because I'm bored of this neighborhood and I don't want to run around it anymore.
Yeah, yeah, habits are hard. Do you still do dance? I mean, what do you do regularly then, like to stay active?
um Last year I was in a modern dance company, which was so much drama.
Yeah,
Um
everyone I've heard, well, we don't have to go into this. Everyone I've heard who's done that, like it's always drama, but I don't know, maybe it's a law or something.
um it's entropy, right? It's a natural law.
Yeah.
um I also still about 2 years ago, a couple started a swing dance in Frederick. Dancing in general is very, very popular in DC and also very popular in Baltimore. Frederick is unfortunately, it's a city that's, depending on what you count as the limits, it's like 50 to 100,000 people in this area. And we're barely an hour away from DC or Baltimore, and maybe 2.5-ish from Philadelphia.
So you're
So
like in
there,
between. You're not in any critical mass. You're like not
right,
in
and
the sphere. Yeah.
it's a very difficult sell, because if you are willing to drive down to DC, you have literally the best in the country. So there's this weird competition. So there's less dancing in the Frederick area, but I'm really committed to supporting that because I don't want to have to drive down to DC for all of my social events. So I swing dance in Frederick. There's a really great salsa night. Um, and then there's way too much yoga. I don't know how all of the places stay in business. There's this modern dance company that tries to do classes sometimes. There's a burlesque studio that does like the pole dancing and the aerial silks and the aerial yoga and stuff. So I try to do something like that about once a week. But it's not the same as like running or rock climbing, which are things I've done in the past.
Yeah, and like I've been trying to, I mean, we have like a gym in the townhouse complex. I have no excuse. I've been trying to do like I've been trying to ask people if I'm really lazy, what I do, and people are like, just go 2 days a week and just do some cardio. Like just, I mean, I do walk. I mean, I walk a lot, just like around campus, and like I stay
Yeah.
reasonably active, but not like at the running level. So I'm trying to just do 2 days a week so that I can keep it up. Because I've ever tried to go like I'm gonna go every day or every other day, it's like I do it for 2 months and then I always fall off the wagon.
Yeah, it's really about finding a way to do it sustainably. And that was where a lot of the drama in that dance company came from. Was I was one of the oldest people in the company, and I'm the only one who made it out of that season uninjured. And a lot of it came from the younger women saying, "Oh, we're going to do this fancy thing." And I'm like, "Yeah, I can't do that anymore." and I would just not be asked to do things that my body couldn't handle. And I don't know, it was very disappointing to find out that that dance company wasn't the way I was gonna keep dancing. I really wanna be one of those, like, crazy old ladies who wears, like, lots of layers of, like, black flowy clothes and all of her jewelry at the same time, just, like, multiple rings on every fingers and, like, lots of necklaces and, like, the crazy hair, and, like, she stands out in the park and goes, like, I'm, like, dancing with the trees, and, just, like, rolls around on the grass and has, like, 5 crazy friends that meet her out there and kinda like old witches or something.
Well, you could still, I mean,
I
that's
mean, yeah, I
you
can
could
do
still
that.
help
I
with that
just
goal.
it's just not gonna be with any of the women from that group who are still pretending that they're gonna have a career as dancers.
Yeah, like, there's something about, like, now that we're in our 30s, like, there's something about, like, I feel like there's some kind of a, I don't know, it's like a joy, but also kind of like a, I don't know, it's like it feels a bit more relaxed to be a bit older in a way because, like, you don't have to worry about all the kind of, I don't know about angst, but, like, all those expectations of youth, right? Like, of like, "Oh, I really want a gun for this," and you're like, "Yeah, this is a recreational thing I do for fun." Like, I'm kinda more comfortable with myself at this point, right? I mean, just not just with dance, but with anything.
Yeah, and it's funny because I saw some of the younger women struggling with that actively, was they were literally, for the first time in their lives, appreciating that they may not be professional full-time dancers for the rest of their lives, and we're kind of going through the process of appreciating what is their adult life going to look like. They've never imagined it any other way. And some of them I saw came to a point of realizing this was like freedom, like, oh, there's all these other things I hadn't thought of. I can really still do, like, just because this one thing is no longer a plausible career, like, that opens up, like, I have a lot of other options. And some of the other women were like kind of really struggling with it, um, and not really ready for someone older to just sweep in and tell them it was going to be all right.
Wait, so when you got into it, that, I mean, were you aspiring to, have dance as a serious career thing, or was that never a thing for
It
you?
was, well, that's the thing, is it was never a thing for me.
Yeah,
And that might have been because my parents were like, this isn't really a thing people do.
major in
And
math.
this, well, right. And they were also like, this also isn't really a thing that, like, women who can do math need to settle for. And part of me wishes that they had let me indulge in it a little bit more. Um,
So did you do it
because
growing up? Like, what was your history with that, like, growing up?
Oh, I was one of those little kids where if my mother needed me out of her hair for 20 minutes while she did the dishes, she would just stick me in the living room and turn on a cassette tape, and I would just start running around in circles at, like, the age of, like, 2.5. So it was just, I just always kind of wanted to run around whenever I heard music. And so she signed me up for dance classes pretty much as soon as she could, which was, most studios will have something called creative movement, which is for, like, 4-year-olds. And it's pretty much just like you run around for an hour and they put music on.
That's awesome. Yeah, I wish we could extend that into adulthood, right? Do you remember the cassette tapes? Do you remember which,
I remember my absolute favorite one was actually like a best of Disney soundtrack. And my favorite one was, like, the train song at the end about the train Casey Jr., which
I
is,
don't remember that at
I
all.
think it's the song that they play when you're waiting in line for, Big Thunder Mountain Roller
Oh,
Coaster.
so it's a soundtrack for, like, Disney World or
Oh,
Disneyland?
yeah, it's a
Oh.
small wor like, it had some
Ah,
of the songs from the movies, but it also had, like, It's a Small World, like, from the ride.
wow, that blows my mind. I just remember that you brought that, like, I've never talked about this on air because, like, there's no context. So I remember this was like, what, 92, because I was in second grade. I was a true child of the 90s because every grade was like 1 year, right? It was like, we're talking about the number thing. So, like,
Mhm.
first grade was 91, second grade 92. I skipped a grade, so that messed it up. But I remember it was Michael Jackson. I think it was the Dangerous album, or it was where there was Jam and all those really early 90s ones. I remember we had like a stereo and the cassette tapes, and I would just like I did the exact same thing. I wasn't like 4 too. I was like 9 or 10. But yeah, I would just like jump around the house, and it was like totally not, there was no structure to it all, because we didn't have like, I had a Game Boy, right? But besides that, we didn't have like, iPads or YouTube to entertain ourselves back then.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that was the extent of my dance career, was jumping around my living room while my parents wanted me out of their hair.
I mean, I'm always really disappointed that um that people put dance sort of on a pedestal and think that it's something that you need a lot of experience and a lot of training if you want to do a particular kind of dance. But literally all you're doing, and I've had several interesting thought experiments about this, about what dance really means. So I have sort of a philosophical thesis ready
Yeah,
definition.
let's go
So
for it.
it's a movement that's made with the intention to express something, and usually in the context of music. So now what are the things I want you to think about is, are marching bands dancing?
Yeah. Martian Man seems so structured, right? It seems, I mean, it
Mhm.
seems, I mean, it does fit your definition because it is very intentioned.
Well, so like this is I love this edge case, because just like a band marching down the street playing a song, not really dancing. The stuff that like the Ohio State
Oh yeah, like the
marching band
performance
does on the
stuff. Yeah,
field, those
yeah.
performances, I would say that those are.
Yeah, they're choreographed. I mean, they're
Yeah.
pretty elaborate
And
choreographed
they're
things.
meant to like give you ideas, and usually the ideas are related to the, like, they're effectively communicating something. And just because they're doing it as a group and no individual piece involves complicated movement, like, I would say that is dance.
So what about like, at a wedding where you have to like, they have to do the first dance or whatever, and it's like super rehearsed and awkward, and like it's just like a formality. It's almost like a marching band thing. What do you think about
Mhm.
that? Like it's like, okay, we have to do it. We have to learn these like 5 steps, and we just have to do it to get a picture or video.
Yeah, so this is why I said that the intention has to be some form of expression. But just like modern art, the expression that you're making could be, I have to do this, or I have to be here.
Wait, so modern art, so there are modern art forms that people have they feel obliged to
Well,
do, like a
no, no,
wedding.
no. So what I mean is, like if you go into a modern art gallery and there's a blank canvas that's like anti-art, but because of the context, it's making an expression. It's challenging you to think about, like, well, what belongs in this room? If I can put a blank canvas in here, if I can put a yellow striped box in here, and someone thinks that art, it's making like an anti-art statement. And you can make anti-dance statements. I've been in modern dance pieces where we took chairs and sat on the stage and looked back at the audience to make an expression about like who was really performing. And that counts as dance,
Wow, the
because
awkward
in
stares, yeah.
well, right, because in that context, people are there and they're like, we're here to watch you dance. And so almost any physical expression that you make in that space is a statement about dance. So I would say that in the same way, the choreographed, like, compulsory first wedding dance is a statement about dance, because it's saying like this is like a socially significant moment, and except we like don't we're not bothered to like truly understand it or indulge in it. So I think that counts.
Yeah, so
I
what
mean,
about
like
the
the
jumping
other
around
thing
our living
is,
rooms? So what about the jumping around our living room story?
I mean, I think that's like the purest form of dance,
Hmm.
because that is expression without even caring that there's an audience.
Yeah.
That's like the artist, that's the Da Vinci sketchbook, where yeah, we might prefer the paintings that get hung up, but like the sketchbooks are really cool and they tell you what's like really there.
Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
mean, I did a lot of sketching too as a kid. Yeah, I remember besides the Michael Jackson dancing around phase, there was the I would just always have scrap paper from like my parents always had random printouts, right, from their
mhm.
like crappy printers. I would just take it and sketch stuff on it, and that was just how we entertained ourselves back in the day.
Right. And then at some age, you somehow got this idea that like they had to look a certain way, and maybe you stopped doing it as much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I always wanted to learn to draw like for reals, right? We talked to this like a year ago when we were
Mhm.
talking about comics, but like, yeah, and I like, yeah, I think my extent of doodling and drawing was very much like the dancing around the living room thing, right? It's like I was just doing it for myself, and I wasn't a student of art or any kind. Yeah,
But like, isn't that so crazy? This idea that maybe you were making the purest form of art of all, and then at some point you got this idea that like if you wanted it to be a specific way, you needed to practice and all of this other stuff goes on top of it.
yeah, yeah, totally. I
Um,
kept some of my notebooks too. I think those are the things I kept. Yeah, speaking of packing
yeah.
stuff or getting rid of stuff, yeah, I try to keep mostly those things, right? Just like random notebooks that doodles, like random books when I was a kid. Some of them I keep, but most of them are just generic books, right? I don't really care
Mhm.
about them much. But the stuff that you produce yourself, and like, I wish I had more like home videos. Like my parents have some old ones, but we didn't have much. Like that was my only regret. Like we didn't have much in terms of like videotape footage of stuff.
That brings me the home video thing reminds me of another interesting dance edge case, which is my mom has some old home videos of her and her sister, and they were majorettes, which is
What's a
the
majorette?
it's the baton twirling. And it frequently accompanies marching bands or is sometimes done as like a form of cheerleading or just performance. Her sister became like a Colts cheerleader. And when they were in high school, I think they did like fire baton twirling at like baseball and football games and stuff in
Oh, so her
Baltimore.
sister was a professional cheerleader. I mean, like that was her
Uh-huh.
profession. Oh
Yeah.
wow.
Um, I mean, for a short time before the Colts packed up and left Baltimore in the middle of the night. Um, but anyways, these videos of my mom and her sister baton twirling, the only the only thing that could possibly be expressed there is like virtuosity of doing the thing. Like they're not, even if it was a choreographed routine, it was intended to just show tricks. It was more like gymnastics. Like you have to do a big throw and a little throw and a blind catch and a turn, and you have to do this and it has to be perfectly synchronized. And um it was way more about precision than expression.
Yeah, it was like about. I remember these. Remember there was all these trends in the '90s. There was like the Diablos, like the yo-yo things, and the stick
Uh-huh.
things. Like there was
Uh-huh.
the various forms of those. They have the three sticks, or the stick with a yo-yo thing in the middle, or like
Yeah.
all these sorts of things. Yeah, and people would just do these. Yeah, that reminds me of that at a much more professional level.
Right, right. And it was just so interesting to me because I'd always kind of wondered, this majorette background that my mom had was a lot like dance. And so growing up, um, she like mostly understood what I was doing, but like not really. And it wasn't until I saw those home videos of what being like a majorette really was that I realized I was like, I couldn't articulate it, but I was like, this is like not really the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like it superficially felt like it might be the same thing. So you thought it's
Yeah.
like a near miss, right? It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's almost there, but it's actually quite different, on a deeper level. Yeah.
And it's interesting because ballet is mostly about virtuosity of movement. It's mostly about doing the ballet, like the platonic ballet, but that still includes like an expression, which is what's so tantalizing about it is that you need to try to reach like physically perfecting the movements, but then there's also like some sort of like soul that you need to imbue. And like even if you were physically perfect, you could spend the rest of your life trying to like give your movement the right quality.
Yeah, so the ballet is an interesting. I mean, that's really interesting because do you think that that has a really high barrier to entry because you have to actually get really, really good at the technical part before you can be creatively expressive, or do you think you don't need to actually be super, super good before you can like have the soul and the
Well,
expressivity?
that's really interesting because there's a few really popular ballet dancers who are technically not as good, but were popular because they were such beautiful dancers to watch. Um, I believe the guy I'm thinking of from the middle of last century, Nureyev, um, was like that. And there's a lot of dance movies that are about like, oh, like she's not the best ballerina, but she's got the heart. And usually what happens is they end up in some sort of like contemporary dance, which is what modern dance was the idea that like if we lose some of the rules from ballet, we can focus more on the expression. And in particular, that means we can be like 50-year-old women rolling around on the ground in the park making dances about what it means to be a woman in society.
Life goals, yes.
um, but yeah, I mean, ballet has a ridiculously high technical barrier. And that is like kind of literally what the difference is between ballet and modern dance. Like modern dance, you never put the point shoes on.
Yeah, because I always felt like, yeah, I mean, even the people who, people say are not the best technical, I mean, they are still obviously very, very
Yes.
good, right? And so,
Yes.
like, I liken like ballet lessons just from what I've seen to like learning the piano, right? It's like learning the piano has such a high barrier to getting decent that if you want to be, evocative and performative, like you actually have to know how to play the piano really
Yeah.
well first. And that seems like a real grind for kids because you're like, you better really like practicing piano for thousands of hours if you want to be expressive. Whereas, other instruments could be a bit easier to get started with. I mean, for music.
Right. And then unfortunately, what you end up with is a lot of ballet dancers who stuck with it because they actually really liked the structure and they like practicing. And they never maybe really even came to dance because they wanted to express anything, which was also something I saw in my dance company experience last year was a few women who liked practicing and were really terrible at performing.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, it's a very structured activity, right? I mean,
yeah.
it's like, yeah, I could totally see that because it provides, structure is a good thing for a lot of, and a lot of people may not have that desire to be creative as much, right? They're like, I want
Mhm.
something that's active, I want something that's structured, I want something that I feel like I could get good at and such. Yeah.
Well, and also a lot like piano, it's one of those things where maybe your parents thought you would want to try it. And if you never tell them that you don't like it, suddenly you end up in college and you're still doing it.
Yeah, you're just
And
kind of it's
then
just
and
part of
then
your
you've
life. Yeah.
right, and then you've never imagined your life without it. Um,
Yeah, it's not like you hate it. It's just that you that's just something you do as a thing, and then you
yeah.
never think about like, oh, I'm gonna be a pro, or I'm gonna like be really creative, or make YouTube videos or covers or whatever. You just do it as like that's just what you do. Yeah.
Um, I've had another really interesting thought. It was inspired by dancing socially more. That I think you may also appreciate as sort of a changing life viewpoint. I'm talking this up a lot. It's not a really
All right, let's go
like
for it. Yeah, I'm expecting
um
greatness.
I care a lot more about how I present myself, like physically. And I realized it when I started taking dance classes again. I did adult ballet classes through Parks and Rec for like 6 months before I rejoined the dance company. And I showed up wearing approximately what I would have worn to a dance class in the year 2004. And I came home and I called my mom and I was like, "Mom, I was like, my birthday's coming up in like a month. I need sexy yoga pants." Okay? Girls wear sexy like the ones with the cutouts or like the mesh panels or like whatever. I was like, "I need cool yoga pants with like sexy cutouts for me to for dance because that's what we wear now." And I was like, "Why do I care?" And I was like,
Wait, did
"Because
you
I
surprise yourself by saying that?
yes, yes, because I because you would think that a dance class is a place where it's more of a meritocracy. Like it's obvious if you're doing it right, it's obvious if you're hitting the musical cues. like your performance is what matters. It shouldn't matter what you're wearing for the first 5 minutes before you've even started warming up. And yet walking in as though you're aware of like the norms, the mores for that place goes a long ways towards giving your self-confidence and also having people take you seriously.
So you didn't care about that when you were younger, you thought? Like 10 years ago, you wouldn't have
Yeah,
cared about.
yeah, when I was younger, I didn't really care.
But was that
Like, I
because
was
you were in tune with the fashions of the time? If you were like 23, like everyone wore the same thing, or is like
I mean, maybe, but I was also, like I do remember spending, you know, like, an extra 15 minutes every morning before high school making sure that the gray t-shirt I was wearing was, like, nonchalant enough to make it very clear that I didn't care what anybody thought of me.
we will not share high school pictures. We will not
Right,
share high
right.
school fashion photos.
Um, but no, it surprised me, and the same thing happened. My husband and I tried a different variety of Latin dancing. It's, urban kiz. It's a variety of kizomba, and we went to go to our first social, and I was, like, on YouTube looking for videos of people to be like, "What do you wear?" Because if you show up to a social dance and you're wearing, like, the wrong style of shoes, people will be reluctant to ask you to dance because they'll say like, "Oh, you don't know what you're doing." So I've had this, and even last night, I went out to a salsa dance with a few of, my local girlfriends, and one of the women hadn't been to this dance before, and she goes, "Well, like, what do people wear?" And on the one hand, I was trying to reassure her, like, "Seriously, nobody cares." And on the other hand, I was like, "Okay, well, but don't wear sneakers because no one will ask you to dance." And, like, most people don't wear jeans. And, like, most of the women actually wear their hair down even though it's really annoying. And, like, trying to give her these cues so it would look like she belonged there, while also trying to reassure her, and I was like, "Who am I to say that nobody cares what you look like?" Because I totally look down and see what shoes is the guy wearing before I say yes if I wanna dance. Um, so it's interesting that I didn't come to this, realization, like, professionally. Like, it wasn't at work, it wasn't like I was standing in the grocery store judging people, it was from going to these different, like, social dance events that each have all of their own rules and their own, like, little trends and their own little cultures, where I was realizing I was like, "Okay, well, this is a swing dance shirt, but I can't wear it to a salsa dance. But these pants I could wear to a swing dance or a salsa dance." And, like, I was just like, "What am I doing?" High school Amanda would be like, "Fuck them all, like, you're wearing sweatpants everywhere.
Well, the
You're a
late
great
'90s
dancer."
were not a
Yeah,
high time for fashion. Yeah, the mid to late '90s were not a high time for fashion anyways, right?
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. I mean, that like it totally makes sense, and it's not something to like feel super weird about because I mean, every social setting has some sort of norms, right? And it's like, on one hand, it is good not to care too much about it. But on the other hand, it is weird when it gets in the way, right? When it kind of gets in the way and it stands out in a bad way, it's not good.
Yeah, it's just I was always sort of a like, I wouldn't call myself a terribly superficial person. Or at least I didn't think I was. And to become aware of the places where I am judging people, not on, like, the things, and that's the thing is it's you're not judging people on things they can't control, you're judging them specifically on what they can control, which is, like, the choice for how much effort they put in before they left the
Yeah,
house.
and I think that's part of it, right? It's like you're not judging someone for being like tall or short or whatever, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's a signal in a sense of if you're participating in this activity, it's kind of a signal that you're serious about it, or at least you're like you're experienced in it, so you kind of are attuned to the like norms and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think this is the case everywhere, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Have you noticed any, like, what are the hot new trends on college campuses in
Well, I mean, fortunately,
California
I don't
where
wanna dress like a student, right? I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, I wouldn't wanna dress like, I think I have the benefit that, like, we're in California, it's, like, pretty casual, so as long as I'm not walking around in sweatpants or, like, baggy torn jeans or whatever, it's okay, and I think yeah, and, like, I have the benefit of, like, looking like I'm young in a sense, right? But then I don't want to be like, oh, I need to dress like I'm like 25 or something, because that then that'll just be like weird also, right? So
Really, you want everyone to know that you're one of the professors,
yeah, yeah,
not one of the
exactly.
baby undergrads.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I'll look like, I mean, maybe like a grad student. But yeah, I don't think I'll look like an undergrad. Undergrads look super young, right? I mean, like they,
They are children,
yeah, they look like they're
and
high school students. I was like, oh, wait, are you in high school or college? Yeah, it's hard to tell now. Yeah, it's super hard to tell. I mean, I can't tell how old, it's like past a certain age, right? It's like if people are, 21 versus 18 versus 16, it's like hard to tell, right? And it's like, I don't
yeah,
know. I mean, it's the same way like for kids. Oh, yes, cat cameo. For like kids, like they can't tell if someone's 30 or 35 or 40, right? We're all just kind of old for them, right?
yeah, yeah,
Like, but for us, it's like, oh, someone who's 25 versus 35 versus 40. It's like it's a very different kind of life phase or career phase or whatever. For like, if you're a kid, you're like, oh, you're just kind of an adult. You have a job. Right?
yeah. This is Jade. You may have met her last time we did this. She had so she's only 10 years old, and about 3 years ago, we found out that she had hyperthyroid,
Oh no.
and we did the radioactive iodine treatment for her so that she wouldn't have to take medicine every day.
Wait,
And
what is the radioactive iodine? What does that do?
so the thyroid processes all of the iodine for your body. So if they inject you with the radioactive isotope of it, your thyroid will process it, so it will be targeted there, and it will kill part of the thyroid while the body's processing it. So they measured how active her thyroid was, and they checked to see like it had been enlarged from some sort of a growth. Doesn't even matter what kind, because this will kill, I think, everything. So we brought her to a veterinary hospital. They just gave her an injection. They had to keep her there for a week until she was not so radioactive that she could hurt humans. um, and then that was it. It killed enough of her thyroid that it's now normally active. It's
Oh
very
wow.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wait, do they do that for humans too?
they do.
Huh.
And when humans do it, it's the same thing. They go
Just
into the
non-surgical.
hospital.
It's basically
Yeah,
like a surgery, except it's non-surgical. Huh.
yeah, yeah, but you have to be isolated because you are radioactive. And like we had to keep like her litter box separate, and we couldn't throw away the mess because the hospital told us that your garbage gets scanned. Like they have like a Geiger counter at the dump.
Oh wow.
And if somehow the city finds out that you're throwing away radioactive garbage, they'll
No, but
fine
like,
you.
how would they know at the dump, right? Because they're dumping everyone. It's like they have to scan it
Well,
at your trash
right,
can.
they would know what truck,
Ah,
and then if they could figure it out, like, they might, you know, especially if you're doing it, like, multiple
regularly or something. All
times,
right.
but I thought that was funny. I don't even know if that's true, but
Yeah,
I really
to
that's,
scare
like, a
you.
really persuasive case for, like, we had to save it for, we had to just, like, keep it in a separate trash bag and then throw it away, like, after an extra 2
Where do you
weeks.
throw it? Oh, you just let it dissolve or whatever.
Yeah, you just let it be less radioactive, and then you can throw it away.
Wow.
It was very exciting, and, she was a great candidate for it because she was so young. Like, she could live another 10 years and never have a problem with this.
Yeah, it's amazing how yeah, I mean like yeah, I mean there's some cats and dogs, they just live a long time, and other ones like yeah, that don't. And it's like yeah, so how long do cats usually live? Like what's the range?
I think between 10 to 20 years is considered normal. Um, Especially I think, like, indoor cats can live quite a long time. Um, I don't know, I'm hoping my parents' cat lived to be about 19.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, um, but, I mean, she definitely, like, we were having to give her pills twice a day. Like, if we went on vacation, we had to have somebody come and, like, do that for us, and it was just like, obviously, this is will, if she lives like another 2, at this point, if she lives like another 2 years, the surgery will have paid for itself by us not having to buy all the medication and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. But there's a lot of dogs around. I mean, Southern California is also a great place for dogs because people just like walk their dogs around year round, right? And like
Yeah.
you see so many dogs around the neighborhood or the dog parks around. It's like you just see the whole life cycle, right? I mean, because you see like really young ones and like middle-aged ones and older ones, and because dogs basically are walked every day, so you kind of see the same kinds of dogs going about. And it's really cute. It's like it's like a human life on like a micro scale, so you kind of see everything
Mm-hmm.
around. Um, but yeah, for some reason, I mean, yeah, you see people. You obviously, you see people of different ages too. But for some reason, like with dogs, it's like more, it's more charming for some reason because you see it all there in your neighborhood, right?
You
They're
also because it's a faster scale, like it's like even like the same dog sometimes.
yeah, yeah.
You
I
get
mean,
to
you're in
see
the
them. You
neighborhood
get to
for a
see them
while.
as a puppy, and like you get to see them as an adult, like almost just a year later.
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing that I mean, I haven't personally witnessed that. Yeah, because we don't have close friends who have, we've seen the dogs grow. But like, yeah, it's like in the first year they get to like pretty full first year or two, like they get to pretty full size, which is cool.
Yeah.
Like human babies take forever. Let's go back to the dance thing. So when you were, growing up, now I'm super interested in the dance thing. So like
Good.
when you were growing up, how serious were you about it? And what was your relationship to it like throughout your, I guess, childhood and college too?
So my mom made a really great decision to sign me up for modern dance classes instead of ballet because she wanted she wanted me to have like the fun part of dance
Yeah, yeah.
without having someone being like very critical of
Yeah, 'cause
like the technical
that's like
part.
piano lessons. I just view ballet as like piano lessons.
Yes, yes. She
Non-fun
was like,
piano
yeah,
lessons.
she was like, let's get you guitar lessons. Like something where like, they're not gonna make you dress up to do it. Um, so I did modern dance classes. For little girls, studios run on a school year schedule, so you have the summers off. So I did classes once a week for like an hour or two, all the way up until middle school. And um, suddenly I was like really good. And starting in middle school, I was helping to teach the younger classes.
So
And
even at once a week, you got to be really good, even with the once a week classes.
yeah, I think some of that may have been two things. One is that I understood counting the music. As soon as we got old enough for the teacher to be teaching us choreography that went with the counts, I was like, "Oh, this I get."
And did you like have practice with music or exposure like outside of the class? Because like, did you like do stuff on your own outside?
I mean, I would still dance around in my room all the time.
Right, right.
And the teacher did a lot of, I guess it would be called like storytelling creative movement. And I would do a lot of those things at home. So it would be like, hey, imagine that you're in a magical toy shop where all the toys come to life at night and you're going to dance like a toy. So you'd be like, how does like a train dance? How does a ball dance? How does like a music box
Yeah,
dance?
life was so good before iPads and YouTube and kids just glued to their screen. Life was so good in the 90s.
Well, except my dance teacher, this same woman, actually made videos where she does like the walkthroughs of these and she has the music. And so you can actually now, like on your iPad, have her at home and do those things with
Oh,
her if you
wow, that
want.
is cool. Yeah, yeah,
Right, right. So you're
yeah,
like, so it doesn't,
yeah.
um, but so once I got to junior high, I was like helping younger kids do those things. And I was in two other classes and I was in seventh grade and I was already in like the class with the girls who were seniors in high school. Um, and then so at that point, I was doing like 3 to 6 hours a week
Yeah, that's
on
pretty good.
different nights.
Yeah, that's more serious.
And then in high school, the woman who was teaching one of my classes, she was a dance major at Skidmore, and she needed dancers for her one of her projects. And at that point, I got added to the audition pool for student projects at Skidmore. So, like, if you're a dance major and you need to do a project, you need to do like a 3-minute choreography thing, and you need to find people who are free who can learn it. The high school girls were actually a great choice because you knew we would show up and you knew we didn't have our own projects to do. So I got a lot of exposure to like different styles that way.
Where is Skidmore? Is that near where you live?
Yeah, that was Saratoga, New York.
Oh, that's right. It was in New York. That's right. I remember this now. Okay. Yeah, because I was like, that
Um,
wasn't Baltimore. Yeah.
yeah. And I believe Skidmore may actually have been a CTY site for a year.
Yes, I think I recognize the name, but it was not super common. But yeah, I recognize the name. Yeah. Okay. Makes sense
Yeah,
now.
and then when I got to college, I did it at about the same level. There was a student group that did any students who wanted to do choreography could come, and there was just like a big audition pool, and you could pull people from that. And then we put together like a showcase once a year, and we did a lot of work with. There was a really good ballet group on campus. There was like a hip hop group on campus, and like a theater group, and we were just sort of like the modern dancers are just sort of like a catch-all pool of people available for that sort of stuff. And my favorite was I got to be in the ballet corps in college as like the person who stands on the side of the stage in the ball gown, who's like surprised when the wizard shows up or whatever. Because like with the ballet, there's always like the people on the side, and all they do is like they walk around in a circle once or twice, and then they stand there, and they're like, oh, "It's a nutcracker." Oh no. Like they like they pantomime and then they run away. So I got to do that.
Yeah, my one exposure to doing plays, it was like in elementary school. We did like Beauty and the Beast or some other ones, and like there were like the 3 or 4 people who actually had real speaking parts, right?
Yeah.
And then everybody else just like had some cameo, and then we stood to the side and like sang the songs in the chorus or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is awesome. All right, so wrapping up, we have like I don't know, 2 minutes or so left. Yeah, I mean, the dance thing's fascinating because I've heard from. I mean, I'm fascinated by it because it's something that you've kept up since you were young, right? And like kind of talking about the relationship you have with it. I mean, was there ever like a low point for you that you're like, I'm gonna stop doing this, or did you stop doing it for a while? And like, what made you kind of come back to it? And such
Um
been decades, right?
so I had stopped doing it for a while outside of the house. And part of that was due to a lot of the social drama of it being like you're not just dancing with people, you're dancing with people. And part of it was also the difficulty of getting to these bigger events. And we'd been living in Frederick. So we just moved to Frederick. We'd gotten a house, we gotten married, and I was looking around and I was like, like what would be a good thing to like improve my life? And dancing outside the house was like the thing that I thought of. So it was kind of a New Year's resolution to be like, hey, I'm going to leave the house and dance again occasionally.
Was this last year, the year before? I mean, how?
It was 2 years. It was
Okay.
2 years ago. And so I did the adult ballet class. I joined the modern dance company, which was maybe ambitious. I've been doing salsa and swing once a month-ish. Yeah, so I think it turned out really well. I'm still trying to figure out the easiest way to like keep doing it at this level, like for the rest of my life without being injured or anything. But I mean, come on, it was something I was doing without any prompting at all at the age of like 2.5. So like, how could I not do it?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's really fascinating. I mean, I think that's the I guess going full circle, when we're thinking about the beginning, talking about like, oh, in our 30s, like it's just kind of like you're kind of more comfortable with yourself. We're all just like, yeah, we'll just do stuff. And a lot of it kind of circles back to like, what did you naturally gravitate toward when you were a kid, right? And
We're all just giant toddlers right now.
yeah, it's some weird Freudian creepy thing or something. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I think this is really fascinating. I mean, I'm super intrigued by this. I mean, not just the dancing, but just this like purity of, thinking about what you like doing as a kid and keep. I mean, like for me right now, it's like doing a lot of film stuff, right? Like making these vlogs and like doing these podcasts. Like I always wanted to do like filmmaking when I was little, but we didn't really have the resources, right? Like we had
Mhm.
crappy camcorders. I never had that community, right? Because I moved around a lot as a kid, and like I'd always wanted to kind of do that, but I was never like, I'm not gonna like drop out of school and be a professional filmmaker or whatever. But now I get to like, I have my here. I'll show you my. I have like a half legit setup here, right? With my
Wow.
yeah, this is half. That's why if we do anything in person, we'll record in person because it has. This is like the standard like
Yeah.
vlogging thing, right? With the microphone and like the lens and SLR and like it's pretty. It's like it's the cheapest legit setup you can get. I mean, it's not cheap, but it's like
Right, right.
it actually looks like the quality is legit. I have like a studio light here that I can use for recording stuff. And it's not like anything fancy, but it's enough. I'm like, okay, I'm an adult now. I have a salary. I can actually buy equipment and like just do stuff if I feel like it, right? It's like this is the stuff I want to do as a kid, and now I can actually like do it. So I think it's cool. Being 30s is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, being all of your childhood dreams come true.
I know it's like having an because it's like after a while, I'm like, wait, I can actually like buy myself stuff if I want to now, right? It's
Uh-huh.
like it's like it's the same thing with like signing up for lessons or signing up for stuff. It's like, yeah, I mean, time is the main thing, right? But it's like, wait, it's like we're not getting any younger, so it's like we want to do stuff, just do it now.
Yeah.
Alrighty, I gotta run. And you probably have other stuff today also. But yeah, we'll put this online and I'll give it some clickbait title or something.
Perfect.
All right, see you, Amanda.
Yeah, it was good catching up.